Asriel is a destructive mixed-range powerhouse who excels at fighting at mid-range with his plethora of disjoints and projectiles, all while using his incredible stage control options to limit his opponent's approach and dictate the flow of the battle. As a god with immeasurable power, Asriel's high base damage output allows him to make even stray hits a dangerous affair for his opponents. And with a pair of large floaty jumps, his offstage presence is notably strong, allowing him to jump deep offstage to secure kills like few other characters can. But of course, what is a god to a non-believer? While his power can be overwhelming when you have the advantage, Asriel's frame is rather frail and easy to push around, and as a result, he can end up losing his stocks just as fast as he can take them away. This aspect of Asriel's character is accentuated further by his notably poor disadvantage state and lack of reliable out-of-shield options, making him a character that can just melt if he lets his opponent get past his offensive tools, which, considering how strong Asriel's kit is more than a fair punishment. As an Asriel player, it's your job to use your incredible blend of range and speed to limit your opponent's options at every turn and force engagement from a distance that's hard to challenge from, all while using your incredible whip punishing skills to turn even the smallest of openings into serious damage. Just be sure you know when it's time to back off and regroup, as artful dodging might just be what saves you when you're in a pinch, much like it would in a true pacifist run of Undertale. Asriel stands as a large humanoid character, with his height being comparable to that of Mewtwo, although his hitbox is a bit taller as he floats off the ground. A legendary being born to creation through the merging of every soul in the underground, Asriel Dreemurr is the absolute god of Hyperdeath and the main antagonist of Undertale, both through his appearance as Flowey and as the final battle the players will encounter in the true pacifist route of the game. While he was once a docile and gentle child who selflessly showed compassion towards others, his untimely death at the hands of humans, along with being the subject of horrid soul experiments, would slowly morph him into a malevolent and outright murderous being whose philosophy is kill or be killed. While this would lead to a climactic battle in the neutral route, Asriel's appearance in the true pacifist route reveals that he truly desires to bring everything back to zero. Also, he and the player can experience the event of the game over and over again, and with the endless potential fights of Smash, he might just get his wish. As previously mentioned, Asriel is entering the world of Smash as an explosive glass cannon who can melt his opponents in only a couple of openings with huge screen-filling attacks. Although his combination of low weight and large size make him a fighter who can lose his stocks just as fast as he can take them away. In terms of his basics, Asriel will share a lot of the same aspects as his true pacifist boss fight, including but not limited to an idle pose that will have him float off the ground, and a rainbow trail that will travel behind him when dashing and rolling, all while making use of his over-the-top weaponry to crush any who would oppose him. From his chaos sabers, to rainbow magic, to even fire magic, Asriel will make use of it all in his moveset. But it should be noted that there is one aspect of Asriel that is done a bit differently from his original Undertale appearance. You see, as Flowey and Asriel are essentially the same being, and Flowey is shown to have access to plant and earth manipulation, I felt it would be an interesting idea to pass these abilities along to Asriel as well, with this resulting in an Asriel that can summon massive thorn vines to whip and thrash his enemies. On top of that, this connection to Flowey will also be seen through certain animations, such as appearing in Taunts, and even when Asriel gets hit, with heavy damage forcing Flowey to pop out of Asriel's mouth in a fit of pain. At its core, you can consider this version of Asriel as incomplete, as Flowey as an entity still resides within Asriel's body. Perhaps it can be seen as a physical manifestation of Asriel's hatred for the world around him? Regardless, this version of Asriel is exclusive to the world of Smash Bros., and this incomplete merging might just give his opponents a fighting chance. In terms of mobility options, Asriel has 2 jumps, all while also being able to wall jump. In order to break free of his soulless flower prison and attain the power of a god, Asriel was forced to not only absorb the 6 human souls that Asgore had been safekeeping, but also the souls of every living being in the underground. While it's unknown as to how this affects Asriel himself, I'd like to believe that, by absorbing the souls of a monster, he's able to make their traits and abilities his own, and when these traits mix with the human souls held within his body, they give birth to Asriel's character mechanic. A mechanic that, while it's less of a system, and more of a way to enhance the visual design of Asriel himself, will truly make him feel like the god he claims himself to be. And its name is Determination. With this, Asriel will be making use of the various soul manipulating abilities that various bosses can impose upon the player during their trip through the underground, with a soul glowing within Asriel's chest that will change to correspond to the boss's power he's pulling from. This includes, but is not limited to, the soul turning blue and sidestepping to reference the abilities of Papyrus and Sans, the soul turning pink while rolling to reference Muffet, and the soul turning green during a parry to reference the ability of Undyne. Other abilities, such as Madaton's Yellow Soul, will make appearances in other animations, including Taunts. And as an added bonus, the souls within Asriel's body will crack when he takes heavy damage, with this referencing the way that the player's soul cracks and shatters when their health hits 0 in Undertale. This all makes up the basis of Asriel as a character, an oppressive mid to long range monster who, underneath his glass cannon aspects, is a fairly straightforward fighter at his core, and it will be up to his player to make the most of his versatile attack options, to control the flow of battle, and make his foes play by his rules. For once you control the battlefield, bringing everything back to 0 will be made all the easier. Now that you've become acquainted with Asriel's basics and inner workings as a character, it's now time to move on to his normals and discuss the attacks that he will use to meet his foes head on and force them to show their determination. Or, considering the power of a god, one might consider this a way of simply toying with his prey. Asriel's normals will mainly be comprised of 3 forms of attack, with his main weapons of choice being his access to various magical abilities, flora manipulation, and a pair of swords known as the Chaos Sabers. These short swords will provide Asriel with a plethora of multi-hitting attacks that will flow between each other with ease, allowing him to potentially start combos at lower percents and force foes back into his optimal damage range. And once you do, meet them halfway with your huge disjoints that truly pour on the damage. Asriel's neutral combo is Chaos Cutters, a simple yet versatile series of attacks that will have Asriel attack out in front of himself with his Chaos Sabers, starting with a horizontal slash, then moving into a vertical slash, then ending the combo with a cross slash to send foes flying. In terms of design, this combination's main standout trait is the fact that Asriel will attack with both of his blades at once, with this making each attack hit twice, and much better at locking foes down than your average jab combo. On top of that, the extra hits result in extra damage, and as a result, Asriel is capable of potentially scoring kills against the game's lighter characters once they cross the 100% threshold. But overall, it's one of Asriel's fastest buttons and a reliable way to force opponents back into neutral at low to mid percents. While that's the case, however, the double hit attack style results in both hits having very weak shield pressure, meaning it's a combo that's quite easy to punish if your opponent can see it coming. Try stopping the combo after the first hit if your opponent blocks the attack at mid-range, for if you do, you'll be able to roll out of the way of an incoming punish and, in turn, potentially retaliate with a punishment of your own. Asriel's side tilt is Lashing Thorns, a versatile poke option that will have Asriel swing his arm down, a large thorn-covered vine extending from his sleeves and slamming into the ground in front of him, all while launching any foe in its path. This attack sports both above average damage and great range, allowing Asriel to stuff buttons and potentially even secure kills from a range that's hard for most characters to trade from. But in turn, this attack's startup and recovery are a bit slow, meaning it can potentially be beaten out by faster buttons if your opponent is able to predict it. Despite this, however, the impact of the vine pushes foes back on block, meaning that Asriel's player might be able to make this safe on block if they space themselves correctly. Also, the hitbox of this move will spread out as the vine hits the floor, meaning it can potentially 2-frame foes at the ledge if timed correctly. Asriel's up tilt is Flintlock Arc, that will have Asriel swing one of his Chaos Sabers up and over his head, the tip of the blade cloaked in flames, and creating a wave of fire that will sweep foes up off the ground, all before launching them at the end of the move's damage path. With a blend of solid range and damage, this is one of Asriel's go-to anti-air options, and a great way to lead into a variety of his special moves at low to mid percents. And thanks to the disjoint provided by the blades, it can prove difficult to challenge from above, and even more difficult to land against. Just don't expect to be securing kills with it until very high percents, however, as its knockback growth is below average at best. Asriel's down tilt is Scorched Earth, a powerful neutral option that will have Asriel create a fireball in the palm of his hand, and in a flash, he'll press his palm into the ground to create a wall of advancing flames to deal damage to all foes in his path. In terms of design, this attack's large horizontal hitbox not only allow Asriel to pressure foes from a considerable range away, but also reliably tech chase foes either trying to get up off the ground or up off the ledge. On top of that, this move's hitbox is fully disjointed, which makes it difficult to punish if Asriel can space himself properly. But while that's the case, this move's strengths are balanced out by a slow recovery and a short vertical hitbox, meaning foes that correctly predict this move can easily jump over and punish Asriel before he has a chance to respond. Asriel's dash attack is Alabaster Cyclone, a potentially devastating advancing option that will have Asriel launch himself through the air, his Chaos Sabers levitating out in front of himself and rapidly spinning to deal damage to to any foe they come into contact with. These blades will drag the struck opponent along with Asriel as he moves, all before they're launched away at the end of the move's damage path as Asriel comes to a stop. In terms of design, this attack's long-lasting hitbox makes it a fantastic whiff punching tool, and with its ability to pull foes along before flinging them away, this tool will allow Asriel to either force foes back into his optimal damage range, or put them into an edgeguard scenario. It also ends up sporing enough kill power to serve as a kill confirm at reasonable percents, but all of this only applies if you're lucky enough to actually land the initial hit. As it is a multi-hit attack option, this move ends up sporing very weak shield damage, with this making it very unsafe on shield and very easy to punch on both block and whiff. As a result, using this move carelessly will almost always result in Asriel getting punished, so it's best to save this move for when your foe is either trying to get off the floor or stuck in an attack animation. For his get-up attacks, Asriel will use magic to spin his Chaos Sabers around himself, all while unleashing a burst of fire magic for his ledge attack. For his smash attacks, Asriel will utilize a group of techniques that will show just how powerful he can truly be when he starts to show a bit of effort, with 2 of these attacks being based on abilities that he performs during his boss fight in Undertale. With fantastic damage, huge range, and stylish finesse, these bombastic showings of strength can only be classified as godlike. Asriel's forward smash is Chaos Scissors, a powerful burst option that will have Asriel focus a great amount of magic within his twin blades, all before attacking in front of himself with both swords at once. This aggressive attack pattern will cause the blades to clash, and as they do so, a massive blast of dark magic will jet out from the blades and launch forward, dealing heavy damage to any foe in its area of effect before they're launched away with a violent level of force. In terms of design, this attack is a reference to the double sword slash that Asriel performs in this boss fight, with the addition of magic not only adding more range, but making the attack all the more flashy. On top of that, this move will spore a sweet spot at the point where the blades clash, greatly increasing the move's damage and turning it into one of Asriel's strongest kill confirms. But while it sports great range and damage throughout, this move will leave Asriel in a lengthy recovery animation. This means that either whiffing or having your attack blocked will almost always result in punishment, although it can be potentially made safe against certain characters if the move is spaced correctly. Asriel's up smash is Shocker Breaker, another powerful burst option that will have Asriel call down a pair of rainbow-colored lightning bolts, with these bolts dealing heavy damage to any foe in their path before launching them up and away with heavy force. A reference to one of Asriel's flashiest abilities in this boss fight, this powerful anti-air can be quite deceptive in its appearance. If instead of a hitbox that starts high and ends near the floor, Shocker Breaker ends up sporing a consistent hitbox, they will deal damage to any foe that gets caught within range of either bolt of lightning. This fantastic vertical range is paired with some great damage and a mostly vertical launch angle, with this allowing Asriel's player to snipe foes out of the air and potentially even secure early kills if he uses it on the top platformer stages like Battlefield. While that's the case, however, this move's horizontal range against foes is very short unless they're grounded, with the ground splash growing in range the longer Asriel charges the move, and with a very short active frame window, it can be quite easy to dodge if your foe can see it coming. Finally, Asriel's down smash is King's Garden, a powerful yet unique attack that will have Asriel encase his arms in a thick series of vines, all before thrusting his arm into the ground. At this point, a series of spiked vines will emerge out of the ground and deal damage to any foe around Asriel, with this covering both sides simultaneously and launching foes with solid force. A brand new attack that plays into Asriel's ability to manipulate plants, this attack's large horizontal range will allow Asriel's player to catch get-up options and heavily punish foes trying to get off the ledge, all while sporting solid enough damage to serve as a great kill confirm. Also, as an added bonus, these vines will sport unique visuals that will change depending on how long Asriel charges this attack, as on top of enlarging their spikes, the vines will be adored in a series of buttercups as the move is fully charged. As he is a character with large floaty jumps, it should come as no surprise that Asriel possesses an aerials kit that accentuates his ability to dominate in the air, with these attacks sporting large hitboxes that can strike foes from a great distance away and deal some great damage in the process. While that's the case, however, these attacks are also committal in nature, as their lingering hitboxes and long landing lag will almost always lock Asriel to one attack per jump. Thankfully, just because they're committal doesn't mean they're easy to counter, as their large disjoints will make hasty attempts to jump in on Asriel a potentially fatal affair. Asriel's neutral air is Blazing Aura, a powerful aerial burst option that will have Asriel release an outward blast of fire magic, with this fire traveling in a spiral and damaging any foe that gets too close. In terms of design, this move's attack pattern is lightly based on an attack that Asgore performs in Undertale, but instead of the fire spiraling inward, it instead spirals outwards, with it coming out fast and dealing all of its damage in a single hit. This blend of speed and range makes it one of Asriel's premier landing options, and a fantastic get-off-me tool, as Short Hop into Blazing Aura is his best out of shield option. It's an overall solid attack for a variety of situations, but attempting to cancel this move too quickly can result in Asriel being left vulnerable to incoming attacks if his player isn't careful. Asriel's forward air is Chaos Cross, a versatile spacing option that will have Asriel perform a cross slash using his Chaos Sabers, with this slash covering a wide horizontal range and launching anything in its path with solid force. In much the same vein as his other Chaos Saber attacks, these blades will cover a solid range and deal some decent damage on hit. And much like his forward smash, this attack will spore a sweet spot where the blades connect. These blades, when combined with Asriel's large jumps, makes this attack one of Asriel's premier edgeguarding tools that can secure kills at very early percents, with this being thanks to Asriel's ability to go deep off stage and still recover safely. And thanks to the disjoint provided by the blades, it might prove very difficult for some characters to contend with Asriel once they're put on the back foot. It can even be comboed into at low to mid percents against some characters, but its end leg is too high to serve as a combo bridge. Asriel's up air is Arc of Embers, a more simple yet effective aerial option that will have Asriel build up a fireball within his hand, all before swinging his arm up and over his head and releasing a wave of flame that will damage any foe in its area of effect. These flames will arc out and increase in range during the move's active frames, and with the ability to not only hit multiple times, but also cancel immediately if you land before the launching strike, you've got a move that's going to be one of your most used aerials in a lot of situations. It's also one of the few moves that Asriel has that can be used to set up combos, but it ends up lacking in both kill power and knockback growth to compensate for its unique upsides. Asriel's back air is Bed of Thorns, an unorthodox but powerful aerial option that will have Asriel hunched down as he focuses his power, and in a flash, a series of vines will jet out of his back and impale all foes in its path. In terms of design, this attack will sport both great damage and range at the cost of an abysmal speed and recovery stat, with its damage and knockback increasing the closer the foe is to Asriel when they're impaled. Foes hit at point blank range will be launched with a force heavy enough to close out stocks as early as 70% from the ledge on the game's middleweight cast, while foes hit by the outer ring will take moderate damage and knockback, which, while not impressive on its own, can be used in tandem with Asriel's fantastic offstage presence to wall off a foe's recovery. Just don't try landing with it, should you wish to not get jumped during its long recovery animation. Finally, Asriel's down air is Retribution Flare, a straightforward yet powerful attack option that will have Asriel unleash a massive blast of fire magic below himself, dealing huge damage to all foes in its path and spiking them heavily in the process. This blast, much like the spikes of characters like Ganondorf, will cover a majority of Asriel's hurtbox and sport some very impressive spike potency, with it being able to spike the heaviest foes in the game as early as 40%. But this incredible strength comes at the cost of a very slow startup animation and recovery time. Thankfully, this aspect is more than made up for by Asriel's ability to spike below the ledge, much like Rob can. So if you don't feel like going off stage to take care of your foes personally, ripping away their hope once they think they made it back to the ledge is always a valid option. Asriel will grab onto his foes using telekinetic energy, their souls being encased in a bounding box, in much the same way that the player's soul is shown to be during battles in Undertale. This soul can take on a multitude of colors and appearances, depending on which character gets grabbed, with human characters sporting a soul of 7 different colors, while non-humanoids will possess monster souls. And for a pummel, Asriel will close the box and attack his foe's very essence, dealing slow yet decent damage in the process. As for his throws, Asriel will make use of what can only be described as abusive showings of power to toss his foes around like ragdolls, with these flashy throws sporing high damage and the potential to serve as a kill option at higher percents. Outside of kill range, however, these throws can serve as reliable repositioning tools that can force foes out and reset neutral should an opponent break past your defenses. Asriel's forward throw is Soul Extractor, an aggressive throw option that will have Asriel grab his opponent by the face and lift them off the ground, all before they're barraged by a series of thorny vines. These vines will quickly rack up damage on the foe as they struggle to break free, and once the barrage ends, Asriel will simply toss them away with solid force. In terms of design, this throw's damage and knockback are roughly in the middle of Asriel's options, with it being able to force foes off stage as early as 40% from center stage. This can allow Asriel to set up offstage scrambles, or potentially even secure kills, should his foe not have a recovery that can deal with Asriel's destructive offstage presence. But don't expect it to be securing kills on its own until until very high percents. Asriel's up throw is Prison of Cinders, another aggressive throw option that will have Asriel surround his foe in a wave of fire magic, all before it drags them up into the air. After going up a set height, Asriel will clench his fist, with this causing the fire magic to engulf the caught foe before it explodes violently, launching them high up into the air. As should be apparent by its design, this throws high damage and knockback growth, makes it a potent kill option at higher percents, all while allowing Asriel's player to force characters into scenarios where they're forced to land, and in turn, struggle with his fantastic anti-air options. It's an overall strong throw that can serve a variety of purposes in battle, so if you manage to snag a foe, you're going to be using this throw a lot more than the others. Asriel's back throw is Experiment Disposal. Yeah, another aggressive throw option that will have Asriel ensnare his foe with vines before bringing them close, his face slowly changing to a confident yet devious smile as he looks down on his struggling foe. After taking a moment to laugh at his foe's attempts to fight back, Asriel will send his opponent flying behind him with a flick of his hand, his vines acting in kind and sporting a great level of knockback and damage. When compared to his other throw options, this throw stands tall as Asriel's main kill throw, with its damage being great enough to kill confirm against most middleweight fighters at around 85% at the ledge. This works especially well with Asriel's preference to fight at long range, as should a foe manage to get close, it's an excellent way for Asriel's player to either create distance or force an offstage scramble, but its high knockback prevents it from being useful in combos. Finally, Asriel's down throw is Friendly Facade, a highly useful throw that also doubles as a cheeky reference to one of Asriel's most iconic moments from Undertale itself, with this having Asriel surround his foe in a wave of white pellets, all before causing them to converge on the target. These friendliness pellets will cause the foe to slam and bounce off the floor from the force of the impact, leaving them in the perfect position for follow-ups, allowing this throw to serve as Asriel's main combo throw. While that's the case, however, this move's above average knockback growth will result in foes falling out of combos once they pass their mid-percent range, so make the most of its limited combo window while it's there. It's now time to start talking about Asriel's specials. As you might have come to expect, this is where the God of Hyperdeath will get to make use of a variety of attacks that he's capable of performing during his boss fight in Undertale. While the final boss of the true pacifist route is technically impossible to lose against, it doesn't stop Asriel from sporting some very flashy and over-the-top special moves, with the majority of them allowing Asriel to control screen space and force his foes to play by his rules in the neutral, should they wish to have a shot at approaching and retaliating against his incredible damage output. Starting with his neutral special, Asriel will make use of a powerful multi-form charge special that can either serve as a strong area denial option or an immensely powerful kill confirm should his player choose to dedicate themselves to the move's charge timer. It's a tool that can shift the entire pace of a fight off of a single well-timed blast, but be prepared to take a near fatal brunt of punishment should your foe predict it and throw it back at you. Chaos Buster! With this, Asriel will summon forth the aforementioned weapon once the player inputs the B button, with this large unruly cannon resting along his shoulders as he either releases a stream of rapid-hitting rainbow magic or begins to charge the weapon's ultimate attack. What version of the move you get is dependent on whether the player chooses to either repeatedly press or hold down the B button, with the rapid-hitting attack persisting as long as the player continues to mash the button, all while Asriel's player can use the control stick to alter the move's trajectory. These rapid shots will deal weak damage and sport brief but potentially debilitating hit stun should the foe not know how to SDI out of the attack, all while sporing a three-pronged attack pattern that can make it easier to snipe foes either trying to jump over Asriel or even pester those trying to recover off stage. As for its purpose in combat, these projectiles are mainly designed to serve as both a reliable neutral tool and one of Asriel's better get-off-me options, with its quick startup and unique attack pattern making it very difficult to react to at close range. While that's the case, however, these shots will sport fairly low priority, meaning that moves like fully charged projectiles and beams will be able to chew through the stream and hit Asriel on the other side, all while characters with armor will be able to shrug off the hit stun altogether and punish Asriel for his poor placement. But the same certainly can't be said for Chaos Buster's secondary firing method. By holding down the B button instead of mashing it, the Chaos Buster will begin to fill up with energy as a small meter appears above the weapon, with this rainbow-colored bar being the indicator for how much charge has been accumulated. It will take the player roughly 2.5 seconds to charge its attack fully, with the player being unable to do anything other than cancel the attack early via shield, and once the parameters are met and the charge maxes out, the Chaos Buster will unleash a massive beam of rainbow energy out in front of Asriel. This deadly beam will cover roughly the same length as your average battlefield or mega stage, and should any foe be caught by this attack, they'll take a huge amount of rapid damage before being launched with an extremely high amount of force. In comparison to its Zoner contemporaries, the Chaos Buster is arguably one of the most powerful projectiles in Smash history, with its strength even exceeding the likes of Sephiroth's Giga Flare, and even being on par with some characters' Final Smashes. And since its hitbox will linger on the screen for 1.5 seconds before the move concludes, it's arguably one of the strongest screen-clearing tools in any character's kit. But while its power is godly, it does come with some notable drawbacks to keep it in check. For starters, this move's committal charge time makes it one of the easiest attacks to avoid and punish should Asriel's player use it in the neutral without properly setting it up. And should the player cancel the charge at any point, they'll be forced to start at 0 charge once they start to hold the B button again. Also, as it is a projectile, it can also be quite easy for characters with reflectors to throw this move back at Asriel. And should they manage to do so, they'll find that the comparison to Giga Flare is far more apt than they might have initially thought. Thanks to Chaos Buster's extreme damage output mixed with Asriel's low weight value, Asriel will be instantly KO'd should he be hit by a reflected Chaos Buster. So do your best to either mix this in with other attacks to cover your approach, or condition your foes into dropping their guard as they expect you to drop the charge at the last second. Moving on to his side special, Asriel will make use of a unique projectile option that will allow him to lock down sections of the stage and bring his foe's attempts to approach to a grinding halt. And depending on how long the move is charged, this attack can either be used to open up follow-up routes, or potentially even serve as one of Asriel's primary offstage stock closers. It's an attack that will drastically improve Asriel's neutral presence, and should your foe try to jump over you, there's no attack in your kit that's better suited for immediately punishing such poor decision making. Star Blazing. With this, Asriel will raise his hand to the air and begin to focus his rainbow magic, a cluster of star-like projectiles forming above his head and growing in size as the player holds down the B button. And once the button is released, Asriel will bring his arm down and let the stars rain down the stage in front of him. These stars will deal weak yet rapid damage to any foe unlucky enough to be caught by the meteor shower, with the stars themselves bursting apart once they make contact with a solid surface. This grants the attack splash damage and, by extension, a much greater range than one might expect. And given their lingering hitboxes, using this near the ledge is an excellent way to catch recoveries or heavily punished tech options at the ledge, as save for a well-timed ledge roll, this move can catch any get-up option if timed correctly, and that's only accounting for the base version of the attack. Should the player hold down the B button as opposed to tapping it, Asriel will instead focus the stars into a single much larger projectile before launching it forward at an even greater speed, with this dealing much greater damage and knockback and sporting a much larger splash damage radius to compensate for the extra charge time. In terms of design, this version of Star Blazing can be used as a reliable kill confirm and a very strong spacing option thanks to its unique attack angle, as even should the move be reflected, it's very unlikely to punish Asriel unless it's punished at point blank range. It's also one of Asriel's safest edge guarding tools thanks to its launch angle, as should it be spaced properly, it can allow Asriel to strike foes below the ledge without having to go off stage and put himself at risk. But while very strong when used properly, it does sport a couple of drawbacks to keep its strengths in check, as on top of the slower startup and fixed launch angle forcing Asriel to position correctly, this move ends up sporting an exploitable blind spot. In particular, a majority of fighters will be able to duck underneath the projectile's hitbox and immediately punish Asriel at close range, with some of the game's shorter fighters not even having to crouch at all. And as a result, it's not impossible for characters like Kirby or Pikachu to charge up a forward smash and send Asriel to his doom. It's also not an attack that can be cancelled once you choose to dedicate yourself to the charge, so if you're going to go for the attack, you'd best be sure to make it count. Moving on to his recovery special, Asriel will make use of a multi-purpose teleport that will allow him to put pressure on foes trying to camp at the ledge and accentuate his already fantastic aerial mobility. While he might not sport any sort of aerial maneuverability in his boss fight, the fact that he's always floating, paired with his ability to teleport in and out of view during attacks, is the perfect basis for this versatile recovery option, Hyperdeath Maneuver. With this, Asriel will surround himself on a wave of rainbow magic before disappearing in a flash of light, all before reappearing in a chosen location and unleashing the rainbow magic in a violent outward blast, dealing heavy damage to any foe unlucky enough to be caught in the attack's radius. In terms of design, this teleport will share a couple of aspects with Zelda's Furor's Wind, as Hyperdeath Maneuver's excellent damage stats means that Asriel's player can use this as not only a recovery option, but also a kill confirm if it catches a foe near the top of the screen. While that's the case, however, this move's strengths are in turn offset by its committal attack design, which means a slow recovery and very little value outside of its core purpose in Asriel's game plan. While very powerful when it works, the potential damage that Asriel could suffer should the move either miss or be be countered outweighs the positives a majority of the time, and because of this, it's important that you're very liberal with your usage of this attack. It's also important that you try your best to aim for the ledge at each chance you get, as unless your foe decides to overextend, they'll be in a position where they can easily dodge and punish the teleport if you choose to attack head-on. Finally, for his down special, Asriel will utilize a powerful utility option that will allow him to either drag foes out of position, or should they be close enough, pull them in for a devastating command grab that, on top of damage, will add to Asriel's survivability by allowing him to recuperate his already sustained damage. It's an attack that either has the potential to be your saving grace when you're behind in a fight, or, if used haphazardly, the reason you ended up losing the match altogether. Hyper Goner! With this, Asriel will cackle as he tightly grips onto his chest, and in one quick motion, he'll forcefully tear his chest open to show the infinite void within. A void that will attempt to pull any nearby foe into its maw as it pulls anyone within range and close of the powerful wind box. Should the foe be too far away to be caught by the command grab, they'll simply be pulled towards Asriel's position while having full control of their character. But should they be within grab range, they'll be sucked into Asriel's chest and be subjugated to the oncoming damage, with Asriel attacking his foe's soul directly to drain them of their vitality and heal himself for a portion of the damage that's dealt. This attack's visuals will change to correlate with the soul of the character in his grasp, with the glowing heart within Asriel's chest slowly draining of color before Asriel disposes of the remnants, with this having Asriel create a portal at his fingertips that will launch the foe out at a solid force. In terms of design, this attack's utility is designed to punish over aggression and be one of the main ways that Asriel can get more longevity out of its very low weight value, as it's not impossible for one poorly placed attack to be all it takes to result in a lost stock. But while very useful when it works, its design also makes it a risky gamble that will require proper understanding to use effectively. This is thanks to the fact that, with the wind box pulling foes closer, it can potentially let a foe in for free should the attack whiff. A foe that might already be in the middle of an attack that won't lose its hitbox once they're pulled. Regardless, the upsides can completely negate the downsides with proper timing, especially since the move will not only recover more health at higher percents, but can also serve as a kill confirm. An insane amount of risk for what can be considered the ultimate reward. And should Asriel's player know how to use this move properly and keep its usage sparse, it can be a complete game changer. Last up is the final smash, and for this, Asriel decided it's time for the gloves to come off. As he is a being of near limitless power, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Asriel has been holding back a considerable amount in regular combat. But now that he's in possession of the Smash Ball, it's time for him to show just how powerless his foes are to stop him. It's time for the charade to end, and the world of Smash along with it. This is Reset Everything to Zero. When the final smash starts, Asriel will laugh at his opponent's attempts to fight back as he unleashes a burst of rainbow magic out in front of himself, with this short-range blast dealing a small portion of damage and causing the closest foe to enter a crumple state, falling to their knees and being unable to move as the cinematic final smash truly begins. At this point, Asriel will shed his facade as the world around him and his foe goes dark, all before he brings forth his final form and unleashes a rapid series of beam attacks on the caught foe. These beams will knock the foe up into the air from the raw force of the strikes, and with one final bellowing laugh, Asriel will unleash an enormous beam of magic on the struck foe, the area around them going white as they're completely reduced to dust from the incredible strength of Asriel's attack. As a matter of fact, the blow is so powerful that, in multiplayer matches, the character is completely eliminated from play, and in one-on-one matches, the match itself ends immediately. Or it would, should Asriel not wish to have just a bit more fun. Through a gesture that can be seen as one part kindness and one part pity, Asriel will pull open a file select screen and reload a previously saved state, with this returning the player to life with either all of their stocks intact if they're below 100% damage, or with a stock removed should they be over 100% damage, with this serving as an instant kill past said threshold, all before Asriel reverts back to his incomplete form and returns to his idle animation. In terms of design, this highly flashy attack is meant to show just how powerful Asriel is as a character when he's given the opportunity to run at full strength, all while playing into his ability to warp reality in a way that I feel makes sense for his character. Also, as an added bonus, Asriel's remarks will also change depending on how many stocks his foes have left, with him resorting to statements like, "Oh come now, we're just getting started," at 3 or more stocks, to, "It's been fun, but it's time to say goodbye," should he end up winning with the final smash itself. For his victory theme, Asriel will be making use of his personal theme from Undertale, which is simply known as his theme. One of the unique features about Undertale's many potential combatants is that they all have their own distinct character themes, which on top of serving as great battle tracks, also end up serving as great choices for a victory tune, and Asriel is certainly no different. Victory animation number 1 will show Asriel focusing rainbow magic in one of his hands, and after taking a moment to flash a devious smile, he'll turn around and seemingly grip onto the fabric of reality itself, all before pulling backwards to tear a hole in the background. With one final look back towards the camera, Asriel will remark that he and his foe should do this again sometime, perhaps in another timeline, before slipping into the darkness beyond, the 6 human souls in Asriel's possession being the last thing the camera sees before they too disappear. This victory animation is yet another reference to Asriel's ability to alter the world around him, and now that he's been set free, the world is smashes in for a nasty surprise. Victory animation number 2 will show Asriel standing in the center of the screen, his arms crossed and eyes closed, as he listens to the announcer proclaim his victory over his fallen foes. With a cocky smirk, Asriel will then remark that he enjoys the way that it sounds, so much so that I want to hear it again. And with a snap of his finger, the announcer will repeat Asriel Dreemurr wins, as Asriel looks rather pleased with himself. A more aloof reference to his reality warping abilities, Asriel certainly isn't afraid of rubbing his victory in his opponent's faces, as should they be looking for a rematch, all they need to do is ask. Finally, victory animation number 3 is a rather unique animation, with it showing what appears to be a younger version of Asriel kneeling down in front of a garden of flowers, all before plucking one of the flowers from the ground. Seemingly noticing the camera behind him, the young Asriel will turn around to face the camera, the yellow flower in his hand held out towards the camera as if it's an offering to the player. But this is just a false memory, for as Asriel turns around, the facade will melt away as the God of Hyperdeath is now standing where the young Asriel once stood, cackling deviously as the flower in his grasp grows a face and cackles alongside him. This animation serves as a reference to the cruel fate that befell young Asriel after his untimely death at the hands of the humans, with both his God of Hyperdeath form and the flowery lookalike in his grasp, a grim reminder of both his past and what he would become. Taunt number 1 will have Asriel summon forth the 6 human souls in his possession, their colors swirling around his form as he looks down upon the foes that would seek to challenge him. It's futile to resist. Lay down your weapons and walk away. With one final flourish, Asriel will cause the 6 souls to disappear in a flash of light before returning to his idle animation. As has been shown, Asriel is a character who is very confident in his abilities, and while he might be far more merciful than he lets on, said mercy is more in the form of a quick death than a lengthy confrontation. Taunt number 2 will have Asriel raise up one of his hands and make a playful finger gun pose at his opponent, all before pretending to fire off a shot with a small pow. Only instead of a bullet, a small fireball will escape from his fingertip, with this fireball damaging any foe who is unlucky enough to get too close. A small reference to his roots and the magical abilities of both of his parents, Asriel's affinity for flames isn't explored nearly as much as it could be, and a cheeky taunt feels like the perfect place to make a reference to an ability that he's far too familiar with. Also, as an added bonus, there's a rare chance that, instead of shooting a fireball, a yellow soul shot will be released from his fingers instead, with this referencing the yellow soul power that the player can use against Meta in his boss fight. Finally, taunt number 3 will go back to basics and have Asriel make use of what's arguably his most iconic animation, in which he'll simply shrug while giving his foes a cocky smirk. This animation is something that Asriel is shown to perform multiple times during his boss fight in Undertale, with this cementing his rather carefree nature, as when you're as powerful as he is, you don't necessarily need to try that hard. That, and the angrier you can make your foe, the harder it will be for them to react to your damage, so it's pretty much a win-win. For his colors, Asriel will be mainly making reference to the same aspects that I covered for Sans back in his moveset video, which is the visual style of Undertale mixed with the colors of the 7 human souls. At their core, these colors are vibrant yet simple, with this not only matching the simple color scheme provided by Undertale's sprite-based art style, but also how much the color and powers of the souls stand out when you enter combat. Color number 1 is Asriel's standard appearance, with this featuring a black and white robe to match Asriel's white and black color scheme. While this would normally be relegated to an Undertale character's alternate colors list, I feel this color scheme suits Asriel far better than simply copying the clothes of his mother. And as a result, it's his default color here in this moveset. Speaking of copying his mother, color number 2 will have Asriel don the color scheme shown off on his tarot card, with this having him don a purple robe and cloth shoulder pads. This can also be seen as a reference to the Purple Soul, as there is no overlap in this colors list. Color number 3 will have Asriel don a red robe with pink shoulder pads, with this referencing the Red Soul, which is owned by the player character. Color number 4 will have Asriel don an orange robe with brown shoulder pads, with this referencing the Orange Soul. Color number 5 will have Asriel don a yellow robe with matching yellow shoulder pads, with this referencing the Yellow Soul. Color number 6 will have Asriel don a jade green robe with forest green shoulder pads, with this referencing the Green Soul. Color number 7 will have Asriel don an ocean blue robe with navy blue shoulder pads, with this referencing the Blue Soul. Finally, color number 8 will be a unique color, with this changing Asriel's robe to a blend of green and yellow. This color references the clothes worn by Asriel before he died, and as an added bonus, this color will also alter Asriel's eyes from soulless voids to his regular eye color, with this essentially turning this into a fully grown-up rendition of Asriel and a neat what if. For as long as I can remember, the topic of an Undertale character getting into Smash has always been a popular talking point. And given the franchise's incredible popularity in not just North America, but also Japan, I would argue that Undertale is the most likely indie franchise to have a playable character included in the next Super Smash Bros. And that belief has only been strengthened since the completion of Ultimate's development. From Toby Fox's friendship with Sakurai himself, to his work on official Nintendo titles, to even getting an announcement slot dedicated to Deltarune in the Switch 2 Direct. Yeah, it's hard to argue that Undertale doesn't feel right at home on Nintendo hardware, and while I'd love to believe that there's even a modicum of a chance the character could be Asriel, yeah, I'm not even going to beat around the bush, it just has to be Sans at this point. While Asriel has a ton of potential as a playable character, arguably more than any other Undertale character in contention, Sans was the one that was chosen to be a costume in Ultimate. The only piece of Undertale music in Smash is his personal battle theme, and whenever there's an opportunity for Undertale to cross over with any sort of media, Sans is the character that they choose 95% of the time. It would just feel wrong for the playable character to be anyone other than Sans at this point, which honestly makes it a bit hard to stand by Asriel's inclusion, but even if that's the case, it doesn't stop him from being my most wanted Undertale character. And above all else, words cannot describe how happy I am that this video is finally out. For those that don't know, this video has been at least 4 years coming at this point, as between script rewrites, other projects taking priority, or simply just losing drive at the worst of times, this moveset has fallen through the cracks more times than I can count. But with the release of Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4, I felt the push to finish this just in time for its launch. And now, here we are. Here's to many more movesets finally getting finished, and I hope that it was worth the wait. And with that, this challenger concept is complete. If you like what you saw and want to see more, be sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you wish to keep up to date on what's coming next, follow the link in the description to join my Discord, where you'll be able to see what's coming next before any other platform. Also, if you'd like to help support what I do here, you can either become a channel member or join my Patreon for as low as a couple of bucks a month. Anything I receive from either platform goes straight back into making these videos better, so all support is highly appreciated. That's all from me for now, so until the next time I see you, I've been Felicia Fan, and I hope that you have a good one.